case that shook the monarchy to its very core, but tonight it's over.
The exact moment everything seemed to flip on him is what people can't stop talking about.
And tonight, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor's former protection officers are being urged to come forward.
A once powerful royal prince looked like he finally clocked that the palace doors were closing for good.
I think they hadn't realised how bad the problem was, particularly, I think,
And insiders swear that moment might have been caught on camera.
with Sarah Ferguson, who'd always had this reputation as a slightly ditzy, but rather good-hearted woman.
The whole scene felt tense, heavy, almost uncomfortable to watch.
And to see the levels of deception, the way that she'd abused her position as a charity, as a humanitarian, the way that she had made money off her royal position, I think this shocked a lot of people. It had been covered up.
Like something you weren't supposed to see but couldn't look away from. For years, Prince Andrew wasn't just some background figure drifting through royal events.
And the press has become much more emboldened in revealing these things now.
He carried real weight, the kind that made it clear he belonged right at the center of it all, not pushed off to the side. People around him moved differently because of who he was, and that status felt locked in, untouchable, until it wasn't. He used to walk through Buckingham Palace like it was his natural habitat. No hesitation, no second guessing, just pure confidence, like his place there was guaranteed forever.
Since my book's come out, they reported it very widely, and they've actually continued their own investigations, finding new material. So I think there really has been a change of public attitude and media attention too. People are not scared now.
Every step, every appearance, it all screamed control and certainty. But now, that same man who once had influence, respect, and a solid position is facing a completely different reality, and it's hitting hard. What was meant to be a low-key visit turned into something way deeper when he went to check out a quiet farmhouse hidden inside the Sandringham estate, far from the spotlight but loaded with meaning. Sources say this wasn't just a casual walkthrough, not even close. It turned into a real moment of truth, the kind that forces you to face what's next whether you like it or not. That small, tucked-away spot called Marsh Farm suddenly felt bigger than just land or property. It started to represent his possible future. And that shift, it didn't sit right with him at all. You could feel the weight of it, like everything he once had was being swapped out for something way more low-key, and not by choice. People close to the situation say he walked in thinking this would be nothing serious, just a quick look at some upgrades, maybe a few changes here and there, nothing major.
But Prince Andrew, being Prince Andrew, obviously clearly ignores advice and has gone to visit a convicted felon on his own.
But instead, it turned into something that felt way more like a downgrade than anything else, and that realization hit fast. On paper, the place didn't sound bad at all. A 5-bedroom farmhouse, tighter security, updated rooms, and some modern touches added in to keep it comfortable. Nothing over the top, nothing flashy, just a quiet setup away from all the royal shine. But the second he stepped on that property, the mood shifted instantly. Witnesses say his whole energy changed, like it hit him all at once. He looked shaken, tense, and clearly not impressed with what he was seeing in front of him. One insider even claimed his reaction almost turned into a full-on outburst, though some say that might be a bit exaggerated. Still, nobody's denying that the moment landed hard, way harder than anyone expected it would.
But no, definitely no activity.
Across almost every media outlet covering this situation, one detail stayed consistent no matter who reported it. Andrew looked seriously uncomfortable, like he was facing something he didn't want to accept. It wasn't just about the house, it was what the house represented, and that's where things really start to hit different. Once you understand what Marsh Farm actually stands for, his reaction starts to make a lot more sense. For years now, major royal outlets like the Mirror, Daily Mail, and Hello Magazine have been quietly tracking a bigger picture playing out behind the scenes. Not one huge scandal blowing everything up at once, but a slow, steady shift happening piece by piece. Step by step, Andrew has been moved further away from the center of royal life, title by title, role by role, and now even down to where he might live next. It's all been changing right in front of everyone.
And just time and time again, she was proved to be correct, and Andrew was proved to be a liar.
This move isn't just about changing addresses, not even close. It's about losing position, influence, and status in a very real, very visible way. And that's what makes it hit so hard. To really understand why this farmhouse moment landed like that, you have to look at what he's leaving behind, because that part tells the full story. For over 20 years, Prince Andrew lived in Royal Lodge, a massive 30-room mansion sitting inside Windsor Great Park. And that place wasn't just somewhere to stay, it was a statement. It showed he still had weight inside the royal circle, still connected, still part of the core. Royal Lodge kept him close to everything that mattered. Big ceremonies, major decisions, constant attention. It all flowed around that space. It reinforced his position every single day without him needing to say a word. Now put that side by side with Marsh Farm.
In order for that not to be obvious to me.
And the difference stands out instantly, no debate. This isn't some grand royal estate near the center of power or influence. Marsh Farm sits quietly, miles away from the main Sandringham house, deep in the Norfolk countryside where things move slower and far more private. Even with upgrades, tighter security, and polished surroundings meant to make it feel comfortable, it still doesn't come close to the scale or prestige of Royal Lodge, and that gap is impossible to ignore. Sources say Andrew is fully aware of that difference, and that's exactly why the situation hits even harder. One place stood for visibility, control, and presence, while the other feels like a clear step back from all of that. On top of that, reports claim the farmhouse had been sitting empty for years, only now getting heavy renovations just to make it livable.
We remember the way that ABC television backed off any investigation into Andrew for threat of losing access to members of the royal family after pressure from the palace.
Which adds another layer to the whole situation. When Andrew showed up, he didn't just take a quick look around and move on. Not at all. He went deep into every detail, checking everything from the construction work to the interior design, the security systems, even the size of the rooms and exactly where furniture would be placed. On the surface, it might have looked like a standard property visit. Nothing unusual, just someone reviewing a home. But the meaning behind it? That part was loud, heavy, and impossible to ignore. This didn't come across like someone upgrading their lifestyle or stepping into something better. It felt more like a prince standing right in front of the end of a chapter he never thought would close, and that realization made the whole moment way more intense. The details coming out about the renovation have only added more pressure to the situation, making everything feel even more real and harder to brush off. There were reports of pest control trucks showing up during construction, along with talk about possible flooding issues because of the rural location. Now sure, those kinds of problems aren't shocking for countryside homes, that's just part of the deal sometimes. But when you stack that up against someone who used to live in a massive 30-room royal mansion, the contrast starts to feel wild and hard to ignore.
People are too frightened to take the complaints higher up the chain. Bearing in mind Prince Andrew was the Queen's favourite, no one would dare, make an issue with regards to his attitude.
That gap has turned this entire move into something people can't stop watching or talking about. But for Prince Andrew, this isn't just about downsizing or switching homes, it's about being repositioned in a way that clearly doesn't sit right with him. Royal commentator Robert Jobson even pointed out that Andrew doesn't seem willing to accept this shift easily, and that tension is showing more and more. And whether he's ready for it or not, this isn't just talk anymore. It's already happening right in front of everyone. Moving trucks have reportedly been spotted outside Royal Lodge, making it clear this shift is in motion and picking up speed fast. This isn't some distant plan anymore. It's real, it's active, and the clock is ticking louder than ever. Reports say Andrew is expected to fully move out of Royal Lodge before his next birthday, handing the keys back to the Crown Estate, and that moment carries serious weight. Just think about what that actually represents. A man who once stood as a symbol of royal stability, now stepping away from the very home that defined his place in the monarchy for decades. That single move could mark the true end of his influence within royal life, and people are watching closely because of what it signals.
You're asking me to speculate on things that I just don't know about.
But the shift doesn't stop there, not even close. Until Marsh Farm is fully ready, Andrew is reportedly set to stay at Wood Farm Cottage, also located on the Sandringham estate. It's a much smaller home, previously used by Prince Philip during his retirement, and that detail alone says a lot about the direction things are going. The scale, the setting, the entire vibe feels completely different from what he was used to. Even this temporary setup adds another layer to the bigger picture unfolding here. This isn't just about switching houses or locations, it's a steady move away from Windsor, away from London, and away from the center of royal attention altogether. Over the years, Andrew's role hasn't just faded naturally, it's been reduced step by step in a very clear way. His military titles are gone, his honorary roles have been taken away, and now even his living situation is changing to match that shift. The palace has even released official statements pointing to serious mistakes in judgment, while also recognizing the victims connected to the wider Jeffrey Epstein situation, and that alone shows how serious things have become. Andrew has continued to deny any wrongdoing, but inside the royal system, the impact has already reshaped his path in a major, undeniable way. There's no reversing it now, not at this stage. His time as a working senior royal is basically over, and that reality isn't just talk anymore. It's showing up in real-life decisions and real consequences. Now that shift is becoming visible in a way people can actually see. A farmhouse sitting miles away from the royal spotlight, far from the center of attention he once stood in, and it sends a clear message about where things stand. But it's not just his public role changing. His personal life could be shifting too as everything unfolds around him. The changes aren't staying contained to royal duties. They're starting to touch every part of his day-to-day life. For years, Andrew continued living with Sarah Ferguson at Royal Lodge, even after their divorce back in 1996, which always stood out as one of the monarchy's more unusual setups. A divorced couple still sharing a massive royal home, somehow making it work without constant chaos. It kept people talking for a long time. But now, there are quiet whispers suggesting even that long-standing arrangement might be coming to an end as he prepares to leave Royal Lodge behind for good.
I don't think Andrew has many people on his side. I think Charles gave an undertaking to their mother that he would take care of Andrew, but no one in the royal family likes him.
And that's not the only thing fueling speculation right now. There's growing talk that Prince Andrew might not even stay in Britain long-term, which adds another unexpected twist to everything. Some royal watchers keep pointing to Bahrain, bringing up his long history of personal and business connections there as a possible next move. If that actually happens, then Marsh Farm might not be his final stop at all, and this whole situation could take an even bigger turn than anyone expected. It could end up being just a temporary landing spot while everything else shifts around him. Nothing permanent, just a place to stay while bigger decisions are playing out behind the scenes. But during that visit to Marsh Farm, standing there and taking in a simple farmhouse instead of the grand estate he once called home, the reality reportedly hit him hard, like it all clicked at once. The scale of his life has clearly changed, and there's no way to ignore that anymore. His status has dropped, and the meaning behind that shift feels obvious no matter how you look at it. Whether the reaction was slightly exaggerated by the media or exactly how it played out behind closed doors, one detail keeps showing up again and again in every report. It was a moment that didn't need a big speech or dramatic explanation. It said everything on its own just through how he reacted. This doesn't look like a change Andrew is ready to accept easily. Not at all. Royal Lodge wasn't just a place he lived, it stood for a time when he still had real weight inside the royal system, when his position felt secure and visible. It was proof that he mattered, that he was still part of the inner circle where decisions and influence lived. But Marsh Farm sends a completely different message, and it's not exactly a comfortable one. It points to distance, to quiet, to being pushed further away from the center of royal life. As the monarchy continues to reshape itself under new leadership, one big question keeps hanging in the air, and people can't stop asking it. Will Andrew actually settle into this quieter, more distant role on the edges of royal life, or is there more change still coming? And the truth is, this whole situation isn't just about one person. It reflects something much bigger happening inside the monarchy right now. The system itself is shifting, tightening up, focusing more on a smaller circle. And that means not everyone keeps the same place they once had. What's happening to Andrew feels like part of that larger reset, and it's unfolding in a way that's hard to ignore. Behind the scenes, there's a clear effort to streamline the royal structure, keeping only key figures at the center while others are moved further out. It's not loud, it's not chaotic, but it's steady and very intentional. And in that kind of environment, past status doesn't guarantee future position, which is exactly why this change feels so sharp. One moment you're at the heart of everything, and the next, you're being repositioned somewhere far quieter. For Andrew, that shift is playing out in real time, and people are watching every step of it. From losing titles to stepping back from public duties, and now facing a complete change in living situation. It all connects into one bigger picture. None of these moves feel random. They line up too closely, like pieces of a plan coming together one by one.
So she rang Prince Andrew on her mobile, and he must have been looking out the window because there was 3 of us standing there.
At the same time, the public reaction has added even more pressure. Every update, every reported detail, it all fuels more attention, more discussion, and more speculation about what comes next. And that kind of spotlight doesn't fade easily, especially when the story keeps evolving. So now everything comes down to what happens next. Does Prince Andrew adjust to this new reality and settle into a quieter life away from the center? Or does the situation shift again in a way no one sees coming? One thing is clear, this story isn't slowing down anytime soon. Or will he keep trying to claw his way back into relevance, back into a system that once seemed to revolve around him? Because if royal history has shown anything, it's that stories like this rarely play out in a simple, clean way. There's always another twist, another quiet move behind the scenes, another shift people don't fully catch until much later. And that's exactly why this moment has people watching so closely. That visit to Marsh Farm might have looked like nothing more than an awkward property stop on the surface, just another uncomfortable royal moment caught in public view. But underneath that, it points to something much deeper and way more serious. This isn't really about a house alone. It's about the final stage of a shift that's been building for years, slowly, steadily, and with very little room for doubt. Step by step, the man who once moved confidently through the center of royal power has been pushed further and further away from it. Every move along the way has sent a message, and none of it feels accidental. The distance keeps growing. The control looks tighter, and more than anything, it suggests a long-term effort to keep him contained within a much smaller space than before. That's the part people can't ignore. Royal Lodge was never just a home for Andrew. It was a shield, a symbol, and a way of staying close to the heart of royal life. Sitting inside Windsor Great Park gave him something that matters a lot in that world: proximity. Being close to Windsor meant still looking connected, still seeming relevant, still appearing tied to a system he once had real weight in. But now that image is cracking, and the message coming through is impossible to miss. Welcome to Crown Aura, where royal drama gets broken down piece by piece. And this is exactly why people are locked in right now. Because what happens next could take an even sharper turn. The story isn't slowing down, and every new detail adds more pressure, more questions, and more attention around where this all leads. But then you look at Marsh Farm, and it completely flips the situation upside down in a way that's hard to ignore. This new place isn't just different, it's miles away from where the real royal action happens, tucked deep into the Sandringham estate countryside where things are quieter, slower, and far removed from the spotlight. It pulls him out of daily view and away from the spaces that once helped shape and define his royal identity. And that kind of distance sends a loud message without needing any explanation at all.
Because they were appalled about the cover-up and how Andrew had been protected. But I think the public, as they become aware, I mean, clearly first with the publication of my book in August, and then with the sort of the series of revelations since then in the media.
Because in royal life, it's never just about titles on paper, not even close. It's about location, proximity, who you're seen with, and how close you remain to the center of power at all times. That's what really defines influence in that world. And Prince Andrew's new situation makes one thing very clear. He's no longer anywhere near that center anymore, and that shift is impossible to dress up or ignore. What makes it hit even harder is when you compare it to how he used to live before all of this. There was a time when he traveled across the world as a royal representative, attending major events, building connections in business and politics, and moving with ease among some of the most powerful circles globally. That version of his life feels very far removed from where things stand now, and that contrast is what keeps people watching closely. He was once described as one of the Queen's most prominent sons, someone with serious reach, real influence, and a strong presence inside royal life. That image carried weight for years, and people saw him as a key figure within the system. But that version didn't last, and when his association with Jeffrey Epstein became a global controversy, everything changed fast and in a very public way. The pressure from the public and the media didn't ease up, it only grew stronger with time. Every headline, every report added more intensity, and it became harder to separate his name from the situation. In the end, Buckingham Palace made a move that reshaped his entire future, with Andrew stepping back from royal duties and never fully returning to the role he once held. That shift wasn't small. It changed everything about how he fit into the monarchy. At first, it seemed like it might be temporary, like things could settle down and eventually return to normal. But that didn't happen at all. Instead, more changes kept coming, one after another, each one pushing him further away from his previous position. Titles disappeared, military roles were removed, and official patronages slowly faded out step by step. The identity that once supported Andrew inside the royal system started to break apart, and now that shift is more visible than ever. And this move from Royal Lodge to Marsh Farm isn't just about changing homes, not even close. People inside royal circles understand there's more behind it. Many believe this was never about simple property decisions. It's part of a bigger shift happening within the monarchy itself. The royal family has been quietly adjusting to a new era, one where everything needs to appear more controlled, more focused, and more accountable under constant public attention. And when you step back and look at the full picture, it starts to feel less like a single situation and more like a complete reset happening in real time. The monarchy isn't just reacting, it's evolving, tightening its image, and making calculated decisions about who stays close to the center and who doesn't. And that shift is becoming impossible to ignore as each move lines up with the next. What's happening here sends a clear signal about the direction things are heading. There's a stronger focus now on maintaining public trust, avoiding unnecessary controversy, and keeping the institution steady under constant global attention. And in that kind of environment, every decision carries weight, especially when it involves someone who was once so deeply connected to the core of royal life.
I think Andrew's on the ropes, so is Sarah Ferguson, and I think people are just hoping to put in the knockout blow.
For Prince Andrew, that means the space around him continues to shrink, both physically and symbolically. The homes are getting smaller, the roles are disappearing, and the visibility is fading step by step. None of it feels random, and that's what makes the situation stand out even more. It's structured, deliberate, and very hard to reverse once it reaches this point. At the same time, this isn't just about restriction, it's also about distance, creating clear boundaries between the monarchy's public image and past controversies that brought intense scrutiny. And that kind of separation doesn't happen halfway. It's firm, it's consistent, and it shows up in every part of the situation. So now the focus shifts to what comes next in this already intense story. Will this new chapter settle into something quiet and stable, or will more changes continue to unfold behind the scenes? Either way, the direction is clear, and the impact is still playing out in full view. And pushing Andrew out of the spotlight didn't happen all at once. It was done through quiet, steady moves that built up over time. Not loud announcements or dramatic moments, but small changes that slowly added up. A title removed here, a role taken away there, a residence reassigned without much noise, until eventually the full picture became impossible to ignore. And by then, the shift was already locked in. That's exactly why his visit to Marsh Farm reportedly carried so much weight. Standing there wasn't just about checking renovations or looking over layouts like a normal visit. It was about coming face to face with a reality that had been building behind the scenes for years, a reality where his position inside the royal system has clearly changed, creating real distance between him and an institution where he once stood near the top. And that gap isn't something that can be easily closed, not at this stage. It's visible, it's structured, and it reflects a much bigger shift happening within the monarchy itself, which is why one major question keeps hanging over everything as this story continues to unfold. Will Andrew actually accept this quieter life on the outside of royal power, stepping back without pushing against it, or will he keep searching for a way back in, trying to rebuild his image, his influence, and his place in a monarchy that has already moved forward without him? Because if royal history has shown anything, it's that stories like this rarely end quietly, and there's often more still to come. And that's where things get even more complicated, because stepping away from the spotlight is one thing, but staying there is something completely different. History has shown that once someone has held that level of status and visibility, it's not easy to just fade into the background and accept a quieter role without resistance. And that tension is exactly what makes this situation so unpredictable right now. There's always the question of whether this shift will truly stick long-term, or if something could change again behind the scenes. Because royal dynamics aren't always fixed. They evolve, sometimes quietly, sometimes suddenly, depending on public pressure, internal decisions, and how situations develop over time. And that leaves room for speculation about whether this current position is final or just another phase in a longer story.
At the same time, the monarchy appears more focused than ever on maintaining a controlled image, especially in an era where every move is watched, analyzed, and shared instantly across the world. That kind of pressure doesn't leave much space for uncertainty, and it explains why these decisions seem firm and carefully thought out. It's about stability, consistency, and protecting the institution above everything else. For Prince Andrew, that creates a very clear path, even if it's not one he would have chosen. The expectations around him have changed. The opportunities have narrowed, and the environment he's in now looks nothing like what it used to be. So as this continues to unfold, people are left watching closely, waiting to see if this quieter chapter becomes permanent, or if something unexpected shifts once again in a story that still doesn't feel fully finished. Sometimes these stories shift when people least expect it. Sometimes they circle back, and sometimes the biggest twists show up long after everyone thinks it's already over. And right now, that's exactly what makes this situation so hard to look away from, because that image says everything without needing a single explanation. A prince standing in front of a simple farmhouse, staring at a future that looks nothing like the life he once lived at the center of royal power. It's a moment that feels heavy, real, and impossible to ignore, no matter how you look at it. You can almost feel the weight of everything changing all at once, and whether Marsh Farm becomes a quiet escape away from the spotlight or a lasting symbol of just how far things have shifted, that answer still isn't clear yet. It all seems to come down to one final question that keeps hanging in the air. Is Prince Andrew truly ready to accept that the monarchy he once stood so close to no longer has a place for him at its center? Or is there still more to this story waiting to unfold? If you found this breakdown interesting, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this with others so more people can join the conversation. And don't stay quiet. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think he'll accept this new reality, or will he try to find a way back into relevance? Let's talk about it.